Welcome to CISO Chair, where true cyber leadership, real stories, and industry insights take center stage. This is your seat at the table.
Hello, welcome to CISO Chair, the definitive podcast platform where cybersecurity leaders, innovators, and risk experts converge to share candid, insightful conversations. I'm your host, Ashish, inviting you to join us as we explore the evolving landscape of cyber risk, leadership challenges, and pioneering strategies designed for today's C suite and senior practitioners. At CISO Chair, we go beyond the headlines to bring forward real stories, practical wisdom, and bold ideas that empower security and technology leaders globally. Today, I'm honored to welcome Mr. Marco Nutini, a true trailblazer in risk management and corporate governance across Brazil and Portugal. Marco is the program director of Risk Leap, the first professional development program focused on decision based quantitative risk management. With a distinguished career that includes executive roles at the Embraer and the Eastman Kodak, and leadership in multiple consulting firms such as LoopNut and GetAct, he has built award-winning audit and risk programs, authored 7 books on risk management, and relentlessly challenged conventional risk framework. Marco's experience and innovative vision have been instrumental in transforming how organizations approach risk in today's complex global environment. Sir, welcome to the CISO chair.
Thanks for having me, Ashish. It's a big honor and pleasure. And congratulations for your podcast. It's awesome. And bom dia, como vai? In Portuguese, good morning. How are you? Bom dia.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind word and thank you for accepting my invite. So, you have been a transformative force in risk management, and I'm excited to dive into your journey, insights, and bold perspectives on the future of risk leadership as today's conversation promises to challenge orthodoxies and highlight real world impacts. I'm curious to know what excites you the most about sharing your journey with the audience of CISO Share and otherwise.
I'm excited as well. Let's share my let's share my journey and my legacy. It's always very nice to be able to give some methodologies and leave a legacy of good practices for younger people.
Thank you for that. It's a great privilege on behalf of the community to get this opportunity to hear and learn from you. Now, you started your journey embedded in quality management at Eastman Kodak. What early lessons from those days still shape how you approach risk and compliance today?
Well, the main lesson from the Eastman Codex time, I was a quality assurance manager for Brazil, and we were very dedicated to have the best company in photography manufacturing, and we were very proud of our operational successes and the quality of our product. In the end, that didn't help very much. So the main lesson is maybe companies should pay more attention to their risk and quality people and have them participate on strategic discussions. The company can become very arrogant when they are leaders, incontestable leaders, and if they listen a little more their technical people, that would perhaps have saved go there. That's my main lesson.
Thank you for that. And during your time at Embraer, which is one of the world's largest aircraft manufacturers, what were the stakes when you built out the internal audit and compliance function? And what were some of the key challenges or hurdles that came your way?
Well, Embraer was a state-owned company until 1994 became public. It was sold to the market. Today is one of the largest public companies in Brazil with a stock in New York. In my time, I was a internal audit manager for quality, environmental, and all the things. And I expanded my role for the classical internal audit, if you will, including cyber and financial. And we had to certify for SOX law in the United States law. So I was responsible for that. So that was 10 years after the company had become public. So the biggest challenge was to go against the culture of not having audits for financial and for accounting and for ethical problems. So people was very resistant. The management was very resistant. at that time for compliance and discussions that were not only from operational standpoint. I mean, we're talking now a notch up strategic and managerial level. They were very resistant. So we had to go very carefully, cautiously to implement internal auditing at Embraer. 10 years after that, they had some compliance issues with the United States. The company went through a big problem. I wasn't there anymore. The company had a big problem and had to implement a very heavy compliance program. And now I understand it's a very solid risk and compliance program there. So that was the biggest challenge. Risk culture is always a problem in any implementation.
And I'm also curious to know, what is it like working for a state-owned organization or an airline manufacturing company? Does it mean more resources, more regulations, higher stakes, or you have any other opinion on that?
Well, I think the state Brazilian government paying the bill at the beginning of the company was very important. It was a strategic move for the country, which it's a very good example that depending on the circumstances, state intervention in the, in the industry is necessary because the bill was the ticket was very expensive in the beginning, and the company didn't make a lot of profit for the for the treasury for a long time. But it was an epic journey. The problem is the mindset was always defense and to use it for state purposes and not for commercial, not for profit purpose. So the company became very uh, illiquid or and had financial problems, and government had to subsidize for everything. So they decided that they had enough technology up from a point and market penetration to make it public. So I think was a very smart move. The company today is a driver for economic goodness for Brazil. I think it's still a successful company. Boeing almost joined Embraer and became one company. They gave up at the last minute. So it's still a Brazilian company, but it's a public company. I mean, most of the free float of Embraer is in the New York Stock Exchange. So it's based in Brazil, but it has plants in Portugal and United States, maintenance centers in many countries. So it's really a multinational these days. So I was very proud to be part of it. And it was a little bit of suffering for some times. The company was at stake many times in the beginning. So I joined only after the public, it's not in the state one. But I think it's a nice example that I think that you have the same approaches in India. Sometimes the state has to say, let's do this. It's like the Apollo program and the Indian space program, where the state says, we're going to do this. It's strategic for the country. We're going to bring technology. And we're going to pay for it. It takes a lot of courage to do that, I think. Okay.
So you have consulted across Brazil and Portugal, where cultural and corporate governance are vary widely. How
Yes.
do the regional differences shape risk behaviors and leadership approaches, in your opinion, and from your experience, of course?
Well, I've been dealing with Brazilian and Portuguese companies, and also with international, all the world professionals, risk professionals through risk lead through the program. So I have to be able to do my work to understand the regional and country difference. If you really study Brazil, I think it's like India, and where you have many countries inside the country, different cultures. We have different social realities. The South and Southeast more developed, more closer to what you would consider an European type of situation. Up to the north, much poorer and much but not too good development, but a lot of opportunity. And the agribusiness is kind of joining the complex agriculture. Brazil is the strongest agriculture player in the world at this point. This joins the country because you have a lots of exchange. But I have to understand, like I have customers that are multinationals like Vestas, Danish company, and I have a lots of cooperatives, agribusiness, which are in a different, different level of maturity, management maturity. So you have to adapt, right? And I have a difficulty for myself. I tend to be very excited about complex and nerdy things. But when you go to a company that just starting the journey, you have to adapt your language, you have to adapt your expectation, and be a patient teacher. That's after all, consultant is a teacher. If I don't do that, I will just not succeed as a consultant. But you're right, it's a challenge every day. The Portuguese they're very different from the Brazilians, very different. It's another, even though they started the country, they are not the culture shaper of Brazil. Brazil is a mix of Africa and Europe and Germany and Italy and everything melted. It's a very crazy culture from that so it's interesting.
So what is again more trickier is these kind of on ground challenges never make it to any metric, and it is so hard to navigate through all of this, and it requires so much not just presence of mind but also a lot of appreciation of cultures and adopting to certain practices. And I'm also curious to know, like, how has this aspect been addressed in your book?
Risk is not a number, that's right.
Yeah, so maybe if you could
Lately.
quickly if you could touch upon what inspired you to write, and what can be a tangible takeaway.
Well, risk is not a number. It's a very clear declaration of war against only scoring risk for decision making. By mean only scoring, I mean not against scoring, which means giving an ordinal scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, and ending up with a magical number, which is probability times impact equal risk. So this is completely nonsense. So the book is really about that, and mainly I focus on a major disaster that happened in Brazil, and two twice the same company involved, which is a dam reject dam, mining rejects dam, collapses with death and environmental. So the center of the book was the disaster, which in this disaster, the risk matrix had a central role because it was used by the lawyers, the management lawyers, to attest or to show that the top management was being told that the risk was moderate, but low probability, very low probability. So you have a green probability, a red impact, you have a yellow risk. So this was used as a defense argument. So that's the main point of the book. I mean, what are we talking about? If you look at the risk matrix, you say, how can you base a decision on that? I know that was not the decision. This is just a usage of a very poor tool as an excuse. Saying, oh, the technical people are saying the risk is not as bad, so we didn't do anything. And this happened twice in an interval of 5 years. And so risk is not a number means you can't score risk, multiply one score by the other, and hope to find a magical number that shapes risk for decision. That's crazy. That's completely absurd. But I see that happen every day. So that's how I would say 90% of companies still do it, mainly in the non-financial world. And I've seen that in cyber as well. So the book is a Brazilian book. So it's only in Portuguese. I'm writing an international edition, but it's an ongoing challenge that I have. But it's a call for action for Brazilian companies to go to quantitative tools and to probability distributions and those sort of things.
Do you believe most C-level executives genuinely want to fix the systemic risk blindness, or is it the incentive structure personally and corporately misaligned to keep things as is, which can be dangerous?
Well, frameworks. Right? So frameworks I have a problem with them. And I am a framework consultant. Most companies that hire me say, I want to follow ISO 31000 or COSO or some other type of customer, a client's framework or something like that. The framework, by framework and management system, I guess we when we listen that word, we imagine there's going to be a risk management system, right? With policies, handbooks, a team risk people that follows up on gaps, right? And I think that's a compliance exercise for the outside world, which is valid. I mean, companies have to do that, but they stop there. That sense that you have a compliant framework with whatever is the reference, makes you comfortable. And we have risk management, and it's an illusion or a delusion, uh, because you really can't tell the maturity or the quality of risk management if you don't understand how decisions are made in the company. You can have the best risk management system according to the very, very strict framework like SOX or ISO 1000 or COSE, and still your decisions can be very poor or very misguided or even fraudulent. Okay, so the only way that you can understand and really verify the quality of risk management is to check how decisions are taken or made in the company at every level, but mainly at the top. So there are many, many examples of companies with wonderful risk management systems that had major failures, major failures.
But maybe just to make it more tangible of what you're proposing, a decision based risk governance, how
Yes.
can you go about it and where does one start?
Well, what I propose in my methodology, and Risk Leap is all about that. Okay, it's a program for that, for training. What I propose is that you abandon the risk register and you create a decision register, and that's not very complex. Okay, so most companies today, at least the big, they have a risk register. That's an attempt to do an inventory. Cybersecurity, for example, you're gonna have like hundreds of individual risks, and then you create a classification, and you tend to create like two or three levels, right? So in cyber you have access management, access risk. So you have front end penetration, you have network access and management, and so on. And then you have vulnerabilities created by control deficiencies, and well, you know the thing. You have like hundreds of types of risks, and then we start looking risk by risk and assigning a score. The thing say, if you look at the references like ISO 31000 and ISO 27001 for cybersecurity, you're gonna say, okay, our access management is not good. Okay. We have front end and user problems. The risk is high, the risk is low, and you need a mitigation. So you're really focusing on control. This is internal control management, which is valid, but it's very operational. When you go up and you aggregate these risks, decisions are not more tactical and operational. They become strategic. So you have to decide how much you're going to invest, what's more important, which are my priorities, and are we okay compared to other companies? Is our control system sufficient compared to similar companies? If I if we have a problem, we go to before a trial, we go to a judicial process. Are our decisions going to be looked at as reasonable, or we're going to suffer? I mean, those are the questions the top management does. So when you go up in the ladder and you start making aggregate decisions, strategic decisions, that that way of counting risk doesn't work anymore. You have to look at real exposure. You have to understand the insurance strategies that you can use. You have to understand what's the most important investment that you can do now with the resources you have. And looking at colors won't help you. Okay, so what I propose is that you map your decisions from top down and you create a decision register, which is not really a register. We are proposing to use a knowledge graph to do that so that you map decisions to risks, you map decisions to objectives, you map decisions to control systems, map decisions to assumptions, and you create a decision-centric map. Okay, in my opinion, that should replace the risk register that you will find for smaller portions of the. Like if you have a project, specific project, construction project, for example, it's going to have a risk register, but it's like a temporary risk register. You're using it for just for keeping track of that project, right? You can have a risk register for a production plant because it's a stable process, for example. Then that I don't see any problem with doing what we call failure mode and effect analysis, FIMEA, which is uses scoring. I don't see any problem about it. I have a problem with when you're discussing things with the board and top management that you don't have distributions of probability. When you see the combined effect, the compounded effect of these uncertainties in a smart way, so that you can make decisions. So that's the level I am targeting with the risk leap program. You can quantify everything, right? I mean, even the smallest singular individual risk, like access management, it's a group, right? You have, for example, there is that a supplier will keep a password for accessing our systems even after the supplier's contract is finished, right? So we're worried about our controls. So we say, okay, we have a risk that our supplier the contract can expire, nobody will follow up that, and you have the employee of the supplier assessing our network. Embraer had thousands of problems like that, right? But this is a individual risk. I don't have any problem because it is a control deficiency. You can use a scoring system and address the control because it's a control failure. Okay, so basically the action plan is solve the problem. Get someone to check contracts and stop access. Make an integration there in the business process. Okay. So this is not a top management discussion. I mean, if you take that to top management, they'll say, "Gee, fix the control. That's easy. There's no investment involved. And there's no big decision being made. Decision is obvious." No, when you have thousands of those issues in a big company, and it's almost impossible, in my opinion, to aggregate them quantitative. So I've seen attempts to do that. Okay. So what companies are doing, like there is a very interesting platform, Citadel. It's a French platform for cybersecurity. They have modeled how much maturity of control of a certain unit of information technology can create risk above. So it's not based on quantification for that specific problem, but how the lack of control there creates risk in an aggregated model. So use a regression system, right? You are making a regression of the lack of control to the total risk, and then you quantify the total risk based on that regression. So that's what I've been doing also, and there are many projects like Citadel that address risk in that manner. Okay, so what you're doing is in the shop floor, in the basic operational level, you address the control issue. But when you talk about should we invest in more automation, okay, should we make the contract expiration automatic and have a AI agent, for example, acting automatically to dispense the access, or let we still have to keep it human? So that's not a decision that operational manager can make. I mean, it has what it has. So it's a top management decision. So you have to connect the operational work to the strategic work, but it's not a bottom-up quantitative equation. It's impossible because by the time you are done, things change below. So you kind of lose the real risk management is not about real data. It's about synthetic data. That's the point. We have to get used to that. Okay. Every time I talk about quantitative, people say, yes, but that's subjective. I know everything in risk management is subjective, but it's about the future. How can't you be subjective, right? So it's a top-down approach, but you have to understand what's happening on the bottom and bring it up to keep doing this.
Decision based risk governance definitely sounds like a game changer. But other than the subjectivity part, is there any reason why you have seen or why you anticipate any resistance to the proposed approach?
Well, I mean, this approach is it's what we practiced in the early days of industrialization, or even in the 20th century. We're not proposing a new approach. We're proposing to regain what we had. What we had in the past, we didn't have the risk function, right? This was always, when you're talking about risk, you always talk in the past. I mean, before I was born, before the wars, the risk function was an insurance function. Is understanding the exposures, the main exposures of the company, and try to transfer the risk. And if you couldn't transfer, you make responsible the managers, the company, the operational managers, to mitigate. So that's how and it was a first line responsibility. You didn't have second or third line, but you did what, and then you gave to the operational manager technical people, engineers, scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, and all kinds of savvy people that could help the operational manager, first line manager, to deal with the residual risk that the financial guys are saying, I can't insure that. That's incompetency. I mean, nobody's going to insure this. Okay, so let's move it. And it happened. Well, disasters happen, and it still happen, right? Because not because risk management is poor, but because these poor decisions were made. Maybe with insufficient information. But every disaster I studied, and I have them on the book in Risks 101. Every decision that I followed, risk managers, like we used to think today, I mean the function, risk function, were telling there are big risks here. But the problem is not identifying and addressing it. It's how you make the uncertainty understood, how you show. So the quantification is not only for insurance purposes, it's for discussion, right? You visualize the uncertainty. You can't say I didn't know. You can't say because you're visualizing, you're looking at the tail of the curve and saying, well, what's the probability here? What's the area in this fat tail here? That's my exposure, right? So every CISO, every CISO in the world has that challenge right now. What's my fat tail? I mean, I know that even doing everything that we do, having insurance aboard, everything, I still have that part of the conditional loss that I have to address, and I have to make top management and the board understand that. Okay, and how can we bring it a little bit here, if we want, if that's a priority? I mean, that's my job as a CISO is to put that in perspective, right? And you do this with quantification, but it's just a model, of course. You're modeling what you think is the future. That's what you're doing. So that's how the approach got built in. And we have many authors, important authors, which I learned from a lot, that keep saying this. Like Tony Martin Vega, is a guy I follow, is very good. We are all about how can you make a decision at top level without being quantitative and without focusing on what we are deciding. We're not worried about if it's red or yellow or green.
Because we are talking about risk and how it needs to be looked at differently, and of course how it needs to be managed both bottom up and top down. Looking ahead, how do you envision corporate risk leadership evolving, whether in Brazil, Portugal, or even globally? What new capabilities or mindsets will define success to lead in this particular space, in your opinion?
Well, it's going to stay very challenging to be a top leader in a company. What's making it challenge? It's the speed of things, of course, and the competition. I mean, it's pure competition, and if you don't get faster today and more productive just to keep the market. It's just because your competitor is running as well. So it's a matter of running the same speed of the others now. But I think AI, artificial intelligence, is going to play a big role. But I think what's going to happen, leadership is going to have to, in terms of risk management, right, specifically, and cybersecurity management, is gonna have to have an horizontal view of the governance and how the risks are interconnected and how a cyber attack, for example, impacts reputation. They have to understand the uncertainty of their exposure. So it's not so measurable that you say this is my exposure. There is an uncertainty about the propagation, about the knock-on effects of things. So that's the major role for top leadership. Okay. Now, as far as vertical leadership, by vertical I mean you have a specific cybersecurity team, for example. Okay. I think the future is going to be more agentic. You have now tools that can advise you and warn you about things that are happening in the company. So the excuse that that the top leader doesn't know what's happening in the company is going to be very free, very considered very not acceptable. I mean, you have tools today that bring the information that you want if you know your vulnerabilities. And I'm very worried about the auditing and risk functions in the future. When I think about cybersecurity risk, I think about the CISO. I don't think about the risk manager of the company. I don't think I don't see I don't see don't witness any CRO or chief risk officer doing important work in decisions about cybersecurity or about commercial uh, risk or about security, asset security risk. They're just scrambling at the risk registers, playing with the risk register. So that's gonna change, I think. I hope. So I see major changes in the risk function.
And one of your LinkedIn newsletter highlights the transformational power of AI in risk management. What is your boldest prediction about AI and its impact for good or for worse?
Okay, both. Well, let's start with the worst. There is one thing that keeps everything with a job is the AI has its risks. We call it AI risks, right? So prompt malware, for example, it's a new kind of cyber risk, right? Someone injecting a prompt.
100%.
Yes. So when you have automated decisions, of course, you can hack them, right? So, for example, if you have an automated decision to launch a nuclear bomb, I hope nobody hacks that automation, for example. But the main part is good. I mean, I think artificial intelligence. My most prediction, most of the vertical management is going to be automated, and you're gonna have early warnings in a dashboard in a very fast way. So I think leadership can have very quick assessment of problems that are arising in the company. Even the board members, board directors, will have access to that. So that's my boldest prediction. Is agentic AI will take care of maybe, let's say, 90% of quantifications. And it's going to be vertical. You don't have to stop once a year to let's do a quantification, but forget that. That's going to be done online. If you have, for example, some exception happening in cyber, let's stick with cyber. You have an exception happening Okay, so you have a threshold that triggers a response to the simulator. Simulator assesses the risk and informs the CISO, okay, or audit people or internal cybersecurity persons. And the dashboard and the monitoring system there is going to show what's that exception that's building up here? This is already happening, but today the information is very raw. Okay, it's the raw data. In the future, you're gonna have a simulation engine that's gonna show that as a probability distribution in the dashboard. So we're not gonna talk anymore about well, we have to do once in a while a Monte Carlo simulation. That's gonna be built in the agents. That's my prediction.
Thank you for that. So, as we approach the end of this podcast, I would want to quickly jump into the signature rapid fire round. Two quick questions coming your way. Starting with, what's the one question you wish boards would ask but rarely do?
I would hope that a board uh, would ask, what's the probability distribution of that top risk that you're showing? That's the magic question. When the board makes that question, we know we were successful. So I can't understand a board member sitting there being reasonably high paid for staying there in the meeting, and the CRO comes in, and I've seen this 1,000 times in major public companies. Okay, the CRO comes in with the troops there, the team, and they show a heat map, and you have some risks in the red quadrant there. Okay, these are our top risks. 99% of the cases I've been following, cyber risk. What is that? That's the risk that the company is gonna suffer a ransomware. It's a cyber attack, a ransomware. Okay, it happened in this competitor. It happened there. Is a risk. There is a reasonable probability that this is going to happen, and it's going to cost more than $10 million, which is our threshold for readiness. 10 million, 10 million and above. That's a large range. 10 million to infinite. And the board sits there, and I've seen this. These are very experienced people, business people with a large career behind them, and they look and say, "Well, what you're doing about?" I mean, that's the question. Oh, we're investing in competitor control. We and then they start listing all the good things that they have done. Okay, and I don't see the logic question coming. Can you show us the real exposure in a probabilistic terms? I want to understand the readiness. You're talking about the worst case scenario. Is that an average scenario is already red, or the average scenario is orange or yellow or purple? I don't know. Wow, that's crap. I mean, like David DeVos used to say, crap is colored assessment for risk purpose or something like that. I mean, show me the probability distribution of your loss exceedance in annual terms. That's the question I want the board to ask. Okay, and not what's your action. Because when you ask what you're doing about, you're gonna hear lots of good stuff. Because people want to brag about the very nice things they're doing.
What is the most overrated buzzword in risk management today?
Uh, I love the I love risk management because of the challenges. It's a risk management, not risk management, but risk visualization and decision making with risk information, good risk information has the potential to add a lot of value for organizations. So what drives me in my work is to convince people in a high level to accept that we're going to add value because you're using uncertainty to your strategy, and you still can make decisions that don't work out because the world is full of surprises. But you did your best with the uncertainty that you have at that time. You had a good feel for the safety. Okay. So I am a risk manager because of the intellectual challenge that is to talk about the future and to do it in reasonable terms, using math, using statistics, but also business acumen, which is very important, and with strategic knowledge as well about the company, about the business, understanding the business. So I think this mashup of these things is very challenging intellectually. That's what drives me in my work.
Marco, it's been a privilege to dive deeply into your journey, ideas, and vision. Before I let you go, where can our listeners follow your work, whether it's Risk Leap, your books, or your newsletter? And maybe if you know line, you want to quickly touch upon what Risk Leap does and how can it help the
Okay.
community, now would be a good time.
Okay. Well, thanks for letting me bring my work. I'm now more available and exposed at LinkedIn, basically in my newsletter. I am not a very regular blogger. I'm not the blogger type. Every day goes there and post something. I save it for articles. I prefer a little longer article. So my newsletter at LinkedIn and Risk Leap, you have the training programs there. I have a site that's discussing ontology and knowledge graphs applied to risk management and for decision centric. Okay, and it's in Risk Leap. You have portal there to this project. I call Project Enchiridion. It's the name of the project. So we are completely renewing this continuously, changing our perspective. I'm going to allow simpler models. I think they are more useful for decision-centric risk management or risk-informed decision making. If you will, it's basically the same thing. And Riskly also you can, if you become a member, it's free, and you get all my posts, all my articles by email as well. So you don't have to be looking for in LinkedIn. Okay, to get by email. And you become aware of trainings. I'm going to launch a training program for next October, which is how to make simulations and modeling only using a large language model. Only. That's all you need. And so we're going to teach the basics of simulation and quantitative risk management. And we're going to so publish that. So risk leap, if you become a member, you get this information automatically by email. Okay, and that's it. As far as books, nothing being prepared for this year. Maybe next year. Okay, so the rest takes my time, my whole time, teaching and consulting. Doesn't leave too much except for sleeping.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It is my privilege to have this discussion with you. And I feel there is so much more to talk. But again, in interest of time, I think we may have to wrap it up for today, for now. And a word of thanks to all the listeners. And any closing words, sir?
Well, again, thanks, congratulations for your work. I hope it stays for forever. The podcast, I think we need this type of initiative and complements our work. It helps us get the word out, and it would be very nice to see the podcast grow and become very influent in the cybersecurity and risk management world. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Once again, appreciate all your inputs.
Thanks for joining CISO Chair. Subscribe for global perspectives and bold conversations on cybersecurity. Stay secure, stay inspired. See you in the next episode.